Okay, so hey guys, welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Conceicao versus Foster rematch. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, like video if you do indeed like video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Conceicao is 19-2-1 with 9 KOs, and Foster is 22-3 with 12 KOs. This fight is for the WBC World Super Featherweight title. Their last fight ended with a Conceicao win via split decision. Conceicao is 36 and Foster is 31. Conceicao's losses have come versus Stevenson in 2022 and Valdez in 2021. Foster's losses have come versus Conceicao in 2024, Chinea in 2016 and Teya in 2015. And to speak a bit more about what I've just been saying, like I mentioned, this is for that WBC title in which they fought for last time, and it was a entertaining contest in which perhaps ended controversially, and it's really nice in general to see that this fight's been made again. Two fighters in which have clearly worked very, very hard to be in the position that they're in. I mean, Foster from early was taking tough fights. I mean, the early losses in which he had in his career were taking tough fights against, guys where he was coming in as the underdog, and, Foster was able to build himself as continuously always fought the toughest guys, and perhaps never really expected him to kind of be in a position in which he is now. And, you see that happen a lot with fighters at a top level. They perhaps don't always think when they start their career that they're going to be in the position in which they are, and they aren't always backed and supported and followed and really put on a kind of pedestal by a promotion company, and then they just still manage to make it, and it's credit to them to be able to do that. And I mean, Conceicao as well has had multiple occasions where he's come in as the underdog and is a big underdog and hasn't been able to, get the nod, get the win in some tough fights where he's matched, and it's going to be a tough fight for him. But I always respect any fighter that's able and is willing to fight the toughest guys and really kind of put their name out there, even if they are going to lose, and not really kind of worry about their records too much and just want to be putting on good performances. And that's what I believe both of these guys do. And in general, like I say, I'm really excited for this rematch. I think Foster is going to be coming into this super fired up. I mean, you could see him after the fight, he was crying, and you could tell that he really didn't think that he kind of was deserving of the loss, and the result should have gone that way and things like that. And in general, I thought perhaps he could have been pushed to the side and he could have, been moved along, and he may not have got this rematch. But like I say, it's really nice to see that he's got the deserved rematch. And in general, Conceicao as well, I think he's going to be more than fired up as well, because of course, like I mentioned, him being 36 years of age, having three big world title fights already versus the likes of, like I say, Stevenson and Valdez, both of them before him not going his way, and being beaten quite badly in both of them, but then coming in having surprising results against the likes of Navarrete, where everybody was expecting Navarrete to win relatively comfortably, especially as he got 2 knockdowns as well, to be able to put on such a gutsy performance where he was knocked down 2 times and still able to go out there and get a draw. And when you look back in his career, also that Martinez win was a very good win for him against an unbeaten guy, 17-0 I believe, when he fought him, and he was coming in as the underdog then, Conceicao. And so there's been multiple times in which Conceicao's also had these surprising results, like the Foster one was a surprising win for him, and he's definitely fired up himself. And with his unique style, I suppose the best way of putting it, it's going to be always entertaining whenever you see him fight. He brings the action, he brings the kind of attention, and and Foster, I think he's due a really good performance. I think he's due a performance where he's going to go out there and put on a statement and really go out there and put on a really good performance, because I mean he's had 3 close fights in a row, if you think about it. I mean, the Hernandez fight, he was losing on the cards. Perhaps the cards were that bit more biased due to them being in Mexico and everything like that. But he was losing, and he managed to claw out an excellent final couple of rounds and was able to get a great knockout and was able to win. And that's full credit to him to be able to do that and to save his energy for them final rounds. Then that Nova fight, another close fight for himself, and against a similar type of fighter to Conceicao, in my opinion, where he has his own unique style and it's difficult to be able to deal with the high output in which he puts out and the kind of angles in which he works. And I'd love to see Conceicao versus Nova if Conceicao is to lose this fight, and even if he is to win, to be honest, I think Nova's on the undercard of this against a bit of a lesser opponent. So if Nova's able to win as well, that'd be a great fight to make. But yeah, I think Foster, like I say, is due a performance where he's really going to be putting on a show and really be putting on a great performance. He had that versus Vargas, and like I say, it's been a little while since we've seen that, and I would love to see that happen again now. And of course, Conceicao is going to not want that to be happening. He's going to be wanting to, of course, things go the other way, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. I mean, in general, I think it's going to be another great fight. I think the super featherweight division is in a really interesting position at the moment, and I'm going to speak a bit more about that in just a moment, at the end of the prediction of who you want to find next. But yeah, I think the super featherweight division is in a great position, and I think there are some great matchups to be made. And when you also look upon this card and look at other fights on it, other names on it, there's some good names, there's some good top ranked names on it, some names in which you're kind of getting used to seeing on top ranked shows now. And Muratalla is one of them. Muratalla, a guy in which my opinion isn't really progressing along. He's fighting Campos. It's not really a performance, a fight in which, like I say, is moving along. I thought when he fought Tevin Farmer, and he happened to main event the show because I think I can't remember who pulled out, but somebody pulled out of their fight. I thought that would really propel him on and move him along, and get him fights in which were going to be very tough fights. I would have loved to see Muratalla versus Williams Zepeda. Williams Zepeda was, you know, fighting now Tevin Farmer, which I think is a strange fight to be made. A fight in which doesn't realistically need to happen. And I would have loved to see Muratalla versus Zepeda, but yeah, like I said, I would like to see Muratalla move along. Obviously, I believe that he's going to be able to win comfortably on the weekend, but like I say, it's another thing where it's top rank not quite progressing their fighters along or taking a bit too long to do so, in my opinion. But yeah, going back to the main event, I'm not really giving a prediction too much for that Muratalla one. Like I say, I think Muratalla will win convincingly. But yeah, Conceicao as a fighter, he smothers you, and he, yeah, with his awkward, unique style, it's difficult to be able to counteract at you. And yeah, when he is smothering you, working the angles in which he does work, it's difficult to counteract. And it's something which I'm sure Foster and pretty much every opponent in which Conceicao has faced probably does struggle to find sparring similar to him. And there isn't really many fighters who do fight similarly to him. But yeah, it's interesting style, and like I say, smothers, high guard, works awkward angles, digs in shots, goes to the body very well, and extends his punches very nicely. And you can hear them kind of slapping the motion in which a lot of the time he is kind of throwing with. He's, I believe, becoming a bit more controlled in his work. I don't think it's quite as kind of messy or quite as, like I say, uncontrolled as which it once was. But like I say, now I think from that last performance, it was a bit more of a controlled performance where you definitely have to be controlled against Foster, who is a tricky guy and is going to be trying to counter, and you definitely have to be controlled against him. He does, though, definitely fight his own fight, Conceicao, throughout a lot of the fights. I think he's always fighting his own fight, and that's where I think he had the majority of his success versus Navarrete. When you let something like a Navarrete, who is so explosive, again, so awkward, so tricky to deal with, so difficult to pin down, when you let them fight their fights and you try and work in, you try and counter, you try and work things off there, it's difficult. But if you can fight your own fight against them, then they're just not used to that. And Conceicao did that very well. He punches everywhere. He has a great work rate. He does very well getting you off of him, and if you tie up with him, pretty much just won't let you do that and will just force you off, and in general gives his all in every single fight that he fights. And again, similar to that, Foster again will give his all and has that good work rate as well, and that's what gels two fighters together. That's what makes fights entertaining. Negatives about him, I think he can be still wild. I think he throws from the hip a lot, so even though he has that high guard, he throws a lot from the hip. So if he does get countered with shots, or if shots aren't fighting at the pace in which he wants to be fighting at, then I definitely think he does get caught. He covers up when he's on the back foot and doesn't really try and counter too much. I think he does stand straight in front of you, and like I say, if he is standing straight in front of you, throwing from the hip, again, like I mentioned, he can get caught with shots from that. He doesn't necessarily move back too much or take too much of a backward step. He's been hurt, he's been damaged to the body especially, and even when he's catching and seemingly catching shots well, he's seemingly still able to get hurt. He can smother in close. I think sometimes he does run away when he's on the back foot, run away and cover up, and he does stand tall. Foster isn't really the most powerful of punchers, but when it goes into the later rounds, as he showed versus Rocky Hernandez, he was definitely able to dig deep, and then this is when the power and the resilience and the work rate definitely comes into play. To speak more about Foster as a fighter, I think he catches shots and reacts to them amazingly. I think that's what he does so well, and it's really impressive to see. It's a unique attribute in which he has, and yeah, the ability to be able to catch and then throw the shots in which he throws on the back foot or the front foot is a very nice attribute to have. He fights amazingly, like I say, on the back foot or the amazing on the back foot and then well on the front foot. He feints well, works well off the ropes. He's relaxed a lot of the time. I think I'll speak about that in just a moment. Other things, sorry. He finds openings very well. He rolls with his shots well. He has that kind of Philly shell type style defense, which often doesn't always work too well and isn't really something in which I promote too much, but he definitely does roll with shots well and is able to counteract from that well, and like I say, catch shots from that well. He's accurate, he can fight at a mid or an in close range. He's got a variety of striking, which is a nice thing to have in his arsenal, similar to that of Conceicao in that aspect. Again, work rate is very good, got great timing, and can be quite sharp and clean in his work when things are, of course, going his way and he's fighting in his rhythm. Negatives to say about him, I think he accepts being hit too much, and when you are fighting fighters like Conceicao, like a Nova, and you're going to probably get hit, and if you're inviting pressure a bit too much and you are accepting getting hit too much, even if you are catching punches, you're still getting hit, and judges are going to be seeing that. And this is where, like I mentioned, he's had these 3 close fights in a row because he seemingly just keeps accepting getting hit and then being able to counteract from that. But that's what that counter type of style happens. This is what like a Tank Davis has. Tank Davis loses rounds where he's catching a lot of shots and trying to wait for his time to counteract, but just because like Tank's a bit different because he has that power and he's able to shut you out and shut the lights out, so he is able to get away with that. But because Foster doesn't have that power, he doesn't always get away with it, getting hit quite as much and then really waiting for his opportunities. I think he had a bit too low of an output versus Conceicao, and when he was letting his hands go on the front foot, he was having much more success. I think his head can be on the line though when he does, and Conceicao did sometimes catch him with him doing that, and I think he doesn't turn up the tempo, go into the change of gears enough, and like I say, he has a very good work rate, and I believe even if he did up the tempo in that first fight versus Conceicao, he still could have comfortably gone all the rounds and not struggled going into the later rounds, and he just didn't really seem to do that. Perhaps he was overconfident going into that fight, I'm not too sure. I think he jumps into his shots, which isn't necessarily always a bad thing because it does mean that he's twisting into the power, but if he does get countered, he's definitely off balance if he's doing that. I think he was trying to be at southpaw versus Conceicao, and I think I've seen him at certain times have success at southpaw, but it just didn't really seem to work too well. And if he can't time you, then that's where things he can struggle a little bit more. And Conceicao, like I say, with his tricky, unique, awkward style, is difficult to time quite a lot. And Foster did take quite a few rounds to be able to work out Conceicao, and Conceicao, I believe, is the favourite for this fight. I'm not too sure what the odds are saying, but I believe that Foster will win via TKO in round 9. I think he's definitely, like I say, going to be coming into this with that more fire, that more desire, and I think he's going to be letting his hands go more. I think he's going to be having success at times. I think he might have worked out a bit more of a rhythm to be able to deal with Conceicao, and Conceicao, like I say, has been hurt, and if he is going to the body, Foster, I think he can wear him down and slow him down a bit more, and if he's able to slow him down, then I think he can dig in shots, work in shots, have success in the front foot, and be able to hurt and, like I say, stop Conceicao going into later rounds, even if it's a body shot that he can't react to or something like that, or a corner stoppage or things like that. I think he's definitely going to be coming into it, like I say, fired up, being able to time shots and being able to work that very well, and yeah, be able to get back to that world champion status, which I believe he is more than deserving as a fighter to be at that level. And then who he could go on to fight. I mean, of course, the Hernandez fight is definitely going to be there still. Obviously, with him now not being with Matchroom and not really well, not fighting with Matchroom, or I don't really think he fought too much with Matchroom other than Hernandez fight, if at all. But not, now he's tied down to a contract with Top Rank. It's going to probably make it unlikely that we see that fight happen again. But it's a fight in which I'm sure would sell again and would create hype again, and would be interesting to see again, even though Hernandez is coming off a bit of a lackluster performance versus Matisse, but you never know, that could happen. Or the winner of Valdez versus Navarrete could be a great fight to be made for Foster. I mean, of course, some of the biggest, two of the biggest names in the division, two of the most entertaining fighters, and of course their rematch is definitely going to be entertaining, and two fighters who have been around and fought a lot of guys. I would love to see the rematch then go on to fight the winner of Foster versus Conceicao, and with, of course, that happening with Top Rank, that could happen relatively easily, and it would be a great fight to be made. Or something like a Lee Wood, somebody who is highly ranked and hasn't really been given his opportunity yet in the super featherweight division. That could be a great fight to be made as well. But yeah, that is it for today's video. I hope you did enjoy. Like it if you didn't, like video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.